Okay, so this particular video is a response to some comments by Lee, who goes under two names, Mr. Straight A and 1millionkids, who's a follower of Charlie's stuff and mine, and I really like the fact that he asks some great questions. It makes me think about what I've said, and one of the things about putting anything up on the internet is anything that I've put is always by definition going to be passed in the past, so ideas from the past. And this particular video, its response to a different way of being non-processed, was made about 2 years ago. And so I'm just looking on the screen here. Lee asks, well, the war on cancer gives cancer more energy. How does a war on cancer give cancer more energy? Which is a good question. And 34,000 people dying with starvation. If you protest against that, you give it more energy. How does that protest in this context give this situation more energy? How are you using the word energy in this context? And then he speaks about the 42-day detention and suggesting that never got put into place because of people's protests. And my response to you, Lee, is that you asked some great questions, and in this particular occasion I meditated on those questions, and what I came up with is that you reminded me that I have this desire, like I'm sure many other people, to really figure things out, to really start to think that I can understand how life works. And then so often I get a rude awakening that reminds me that I don't understand how life works, and that's something that I may have to live with for the rest of my life. And there are lots of people who claim they do understand how life works, and they, some of them are in one corner of the room and some in the other. Some of them are like scientists who claim that they understand how life works, and then in the other corner of the room are people who perhaps are more sort of new agey spiritual types, and they think they know how the world works. And I remember when I get challenged, I don't know. And so perhaps I would, my response to your question, how does the war on cancer give cancer more energy? I don't know the answer to that, and therefore I would rephrase what I said in the original video, and I'd say, well, what if there is something like the law of attraction? There is something to it. What if the law of attraction, which basically says what you put your energy on attracts that to you? What if there is some truth to that, but perhaps it's not the whole picture? I suspect that it's not the whole picture, but what if that's the case? And therefore, if you spend a lot of time at war with something, then you're putting energy on the problem and not on the solution. So, for example, particularly with very young children, with our 3-year-old, one of the methods we use to deal with his anger and frustration when he doesn't get what he wants is to focus on something else completely. Because if we get into a power struggle with him, that ends up giving more energy to the problem in itself. Whereas if we take a focus of attention away, that can help. The other thing that the law of attraction and people who teach about it, and again, I know you don't like this, Lee, but if you're interested in finding out about the law of attraction, then there are lots of people who are real experts in it, and I'm not one of them. But one of the things that they speak about is focusing on what it is that you want, not on what it is that you don't want. So a war on cancer is putting all your energy, focus, thoughts on that which you don't want, as opposed to focusing on that which you do want, which is good health, healthy body, and focusing on how to create that. Your question about the people dying of starvation and how does a protest give that more energy? Well, again, I would say I don't know that my way. In fact, I doubt that the way I see things and want to do things is the right way. It's just the right way for me. So when I go to protests, for example, it seems so futile because people get angry. So, for example, I went to a protest against Tony Blair when he was up in the commission being asked questions about Iraq, the Iraq war. And there were so many people that were so angry, and there was all these police there, and it just seemed to me like I couldn't see how what they were doing would help anybody. It wouldn't, how would it help them? I mean, there was protests of millions of people against the war in Iraq, and it still went ahead. Now, I'm not saying that all protests are wrong or that people shouldn't protest. I don't know. I'm not saying all war is wrong. But it feels like, for example, war, I'd prefer it if war was the very final solution and that lots of energy had been put into a different way of solving problems. So yeah, I'm not saying that protest is wrong. I'm just saying I would rephrase it and ask a question to the viewer. Is there a danger that protesting actually is not only ineffective but actually is counterproductive? Are there cleverer, more intelligent ways, more effective ways of making changes? You speak about the 42-day detention, but we don't know what it was that stopped that becoming law. That may well not have been protests, that may have been people working in the background influencing politicians, who knows. So my answer to you, Lee, is to sum up, is that I don't know how things work. I think it's probably paradoxical, it's probably complex. I wish I did know, but I know I can tell you about how I feel in situations. I know that I feel on protests, when I go to protests, and I don't go to protest, I go to have fun with the protesters, with the police. But when I go to protests, it doesn't feel like it's a very productive, positive, nourishing experience, which is why I don't go to protests unless to protest at protests. I go because there's a big crowd there and have some fun. This is, your questions, each of them could provoke books in response, and I'm happy to keep on responding to your questions. I love the fact that you question things, and I invite all the viewers and commentators to take Lee's questions seriously, because he's a very intelligent person and he doesn't just accept things just because they're said by somebody, by anybody. Have a great day.